Hi there, this is Sue Schoning from the Soul Lighthouse. Thank you for joining me. Here we are, we're about to go into July 2018. And I remember saying to you as we started off this year, the first part of the year was going to be busy. It was going to be hectic. It was going to be incredibly demanding. A lot was going to be asked of us. We were going to be pushed on every single level, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, even financially. And we were going to get ourselves to a space where we were going to ask, when is it going to break? When is it going to get easier? When are we going to start seeing the results of all of this action and all of this pressure? Well, here's the good news is that we are now entering into the second part of the year. And this is where the results start to appear. The bad news is that we are in a cycle of purging and releasing and letting go. There is such incredibly intense energy that is out there, and it is leaving us feeling very turbulent, very pressured, very chaotic. We're being recalibrated. And that sounds so very spiritual and it sounds so very romantic. But the reality is anything but. You know, when I think of the word purge, I think of the good old medical sense of the word purge, where you take something which cleanses out your system, which means you're vomiting on the one end and it's all pouring out the other end. I know that's not a pretty image, but it is something that happens that forces the body to release, releasing toxins, releasing what's not good for it, releasing what no longer works, and it cleansing out the body in a very radical, very dramatic, drastic fashion. A purge is never simple and sweet. It's never soft and gentle. It is always dramatic, and it leaves us feeling depleted, absolutely drained as a result. Where we are right now, the energy is such that we are at the space where there are endings in sight. We can see almost as if doors are closing all the way around us, as if everything that we have been connected to is being cut one string at a time. And every door that we thought we had open is being shut around us. And the doors that we're supposed to go forward into have not yet opened. And you know that meme where they say, I know that when one door closes, the next one opens, but these hallways are a bitch. That's kind of where we're at. There is so many endings. There are so many things that are coming to a close, but we're not quite there where we can see what our next step is. And think about it, that makes us feel very unsettled. You know, if we are finishing a relationship, or we're finishing a contract, or we're finishing a job, or we're finishing our time in a city, or a marriage, or a financial space that we're in, and we have no clue of what comes next, it's incredibly unsettling. And this is why some of us are in a space where there is anxiety that is unprecedented. It's huge. It feels like it's just bubbling up within us. And there are some people who are getting frustrated and irritated and angry because they cannot control where we're at. And there are some people who are sitting in a space saying, I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. And so we're sitting in a space of despair and depression. It's going to affect each one of us differently. But where we are at the moment is this energy of releasing and letting go. And as I say, purges are not pretty. Here we are, we're in an 18-9 month as we go through July from a numerological perspective. And an 18-9 is all about releasing, as we've just said, but it says release the structure, release the direction, release the preconceived ideas that you've had about where you're going, and let that go. We need to be in a space where we think of ourselves as physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial beings. And so, as we come to the space of letting go, of creating new structure, of creating new ways of doing things, we're being forced to look at what no longer works. And on the physical level, how many of you have been in a space where your body is so exhausted, it's so shattered, you're so tired, and you get into bed to go to sleep, and what happens? The mind wakes up, and the mind just goes round and round and round and round, and so you don't get any sleep, or the sleep that you do get is interrupted, and it's just not a complete sleep. And what happens is you wake up even more shattered than you were when you went to bed. That is part of the energy of the time. Our physical bodies are saying to us, what are you doing to me? Nutrition, exercise, rest, the environment that you're in. What are you doing? What are you doing to me? And so we're being forced to look at our bodies, not of mindless habits, but we're being forced to look at our bodies and to listen to what it is that they need. I was at the doctor the other day because my body, my physical body, has also been hammering me a little bit just lately. And I'm very fortunate that I have an enlightened doctor. And she looked at me and she did her examination and she sat and she said, if you gave yourself a few minutes to listen to what your body needs right now, what would it be telling you? And of course, she's right. And so I'm going to throw that same challenge back at you. Give yourself some time to sit and listen to what your body is saying about the environment that you're in, about how you dress your body, about the exercise that you do or that you don't do. Are you doing too much? Are you doing too little? About the food that you are making your body eat. Because we are in a space of recalibrating our physical body. And this is really going to have an effect on our diet, on our nutrition, on what it is that we are feeding and surrounding our physical body with. But it goes deeper. This purge goes much, much deeper, because I want you to think emotionally and mentally now. Think of your emotional and your mental body. We know that our physical body carries the genetics of our family line. We know that, for instance, I have dad's eyes, I have mom's smile, I have grandma's feet, I have granddad's legs. So we are quite comfortable with this energy that we have inherited physical characteristics of our family line. But we also inherit emotional and mental genetics as well. How often have you heard the saying, obesity runs in the family? Well, yeah, that's a physical characteristic. But now, how often have you heard anxiety is something that happens to all the women in this family, or everybody in that family has a problem with depression, or everybody in that line really, really is a hard-hitting, hard-demanding, stubborn so-and-so? We carry within us an emotional code and a mental code as well. And in this space of purging and recalibrating, we are being asked to be very, very clear. Enormous clarity, enormous depth into what are our emotional responses and how conscious are we of our emotional responses. Am I responding to something emotionally because every woman in my family responds this way? Do I deal with something with aggression or anger because that's just the way our family does it? Do I deal with something with depression and anxiety because that's just how all the women or all the men in our family deal with these kind of situations? We're being asked to separate what is the group consciousness versus what is my awareness and my understanding. And it's not about separating from the group, but it's about identifying what am I carrying that is not mine, that has become a habit. It's become just a way that we do things. It's just become an expectation. It's become my normal. But it's not something that I have consciously chose. It's not something I have consciously created. These are the things that are being recalibrated. How we do our relationships with ourselves, with others, what we expect of our journey mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. We are being asked to detach from the tribal mind, and we're being asked to step into our own consciousness. So this purging, it's not about walking away from the family, but it is about recognizing what it is that you do unconsciously, without thought, without mindfulness, that is not part of your tomorrow. This is what's being recalibrated. And again, it's not pretty, it's not nice, and it's really, really not comfortable, because it has the potential to escalate us into anxiety or hurtle us down into depression. It's not pretty, but this is where we are. Financially as well, we are in a space where we are being told to get to grips with understanding the financial rhythm of the universe. We know that the universe is abundance within action. We know that there are fields of consciousness out there, and there is pure abundance that's out there. And it's almost as if the universe is saying, for God's sake, figure it out, figure it out. Stop being in a space where you don't know how to harness money and you don't know how to harness the abundance. Recalibrate so that you can figure out how to harness and attract this money into your space and make it a reality. And then, of course, spiritually, we're being recalibrated. The name of the game is becoming conscious, becoming mindful, becoming aware. What it is for you might be very different to what it is for me. And again, it is this thing that says disengage from the tribe mind. It's not about not belonging. It's about being in a space where you're making up your own mind and your own wisdom and your own discernment. Be in a space where you are conscious and accountable and responsible for your own spiritual beliefs, mindsets, and actions. So this is where we are at the moment. This is when we talk about purging and recalibrating. This is what's happening. You know, it sounds so romantic to say we're in the ascension and we are developing into the next dimension and wah, wah, wah. But we are spiritual beings on a very physical journey. We cannot spend our life just being in the spiritual perspective. We have to integrate everything physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially, because I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. The gurus tell us that we are supposed to have 200% of life, which is that I'm supposed to be 100% connected with the energy of the universe. And I'm supposed to be 100% connected with the journey of who I am in this lifetime. And this is where we are right now. Now, if that's not enough, there's some very intense energies that are going on at the moment. We have an eclipse coming up as we move to the end of July. I think it's the 27th of July, so we've got a lunar eclipse coming up. And whenever there's a lunar eclipse, there is normally 2 solar eclipses that come before and after. And so 2 weeks before the lunar eclipse and 2 weeks after the lunar eclipse on the 27th of July, we've got partial solar eclipses that are happening. So this is incredibly intense. The moon is all about our emotional equilibrium. The sun is all about our direction, our structure, our sense of self, our sense of perspective and understanding. On top of that, we are in a cycle of 3 supermoons. We had our first one in June, we've got another one coming up in July, and we've got another one coming up in August. And a supermoon energy is incredibly intense. And here we've got 3 in a row. And what the moon governs, we know it governs our emotional bodies. So it governs who we are and how we are calibrating emotionally. It's one of the reasons why we're feeling at an emotional loss at the moment. Okay, but the moon also governs our expression, our communication, and how it is that we have our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with those around us. So it has this impact on our close relationships right now. The moon stands for our mother relationship. So there are those amongst us who are in a space where we're having to recalibrate our mother relationship. And it's not just me and mom. It might be me and mom's mom and mom's mom as we go back through the emotional genetic line. What are the thoughts? What are the mindsets? What are the emotional habits? And what fits with who I am right now? It's not about walking away. It's about purging what doesn't fit. And it's about recalibrating to a space where things work at a new harmonious level. The moon also governs our home. And when we're in a space of recalibration and purging, what does that mean? It means that we might find ourselves suddenly shifting into a completely new space. And on the one end of the spectrum, that might mean, declutter, get rid of, sort out, clean up, do a bit of a spring clean. A little bit further on the spectrum, it might be let's paint, or let's do a little bit of refurbishment, or get a new lounge suite or some new cushions. A little bit further along, it might be let's renovate. Let's rip this down and build this up and change the colors and let's re-landscape the garden. And on a completely other end of the spectrum, it might be let's move out of this house completely and let's find ourselves a new space, or let's even build our new home. So here's the interesting thing is that I do something like 60 client sessions a month. And since the beginning of June, I kid you not, over half of these sessions have been all about where is our next home? What is happening on the home front? We've got chaos, we've got turmoil, we've got things happening. We might be needing to shift home. Me too. Even as I speak to you, I've got packing boxes all over the place because all of a sudden our journey in this house came to an end and we are moving on the 1st of August into a new home. This is the effect of the supermoon energy. So be very aware that there is a purging and there is a recalibration that is happening right now. There are some other things that are happening, and we have got a number of planets in retrograde. Now, when we talk about retrograde, a lot of people get very nervous and get very anxious. But from an astrological perspective, when a planet goes into retrograde, what we mean is that it's moved into a resting position. You've actually literally got to think of this planet sitting down and taking a breather and having a cup of tea, and it's now in its sleeping state. It's in a passive state. And so it's almost as if everything to do with that planet is left completely unsupervised. Why? Because the planet's off having a cup of tea. It's having a snooze. It's having a rest. It's not on active duty. And as we speak, we have got so many planets in retrograde. We've got Jupiter in retrograde until the 10th of July. Now, Jupiter has this energy where it exaggerates absolutely everything. And when Jupiter goes retrograde, it's about saying go within. Go within, become introspective. It's a time of exaggerating what is within because what is without is left unsupervised. So if you're in a space where you're finding all sorts of things in chaos around you, that's because Jupiter's off having a cup of tea. The only way that we can navigate through these kind of retrogrades is to go within. When our tethers that we are tethered to around us are being pulled up everywhere we turn around, and doors are being shut around us, the only thing that we can do is that we can tether within and we can go within. So until the 10th of July, Jupiter is in retrograde. So you need to go within. Where's your integrity? Where's your space of authenticity? What do you believe and what are you going to do about it? Saturn is still in retrograde until we get to the 6th of September. So we've got another couple of months of this. And Saturn, people get really worried when we talk about Saturn because it's called the great teacher. And it is called the bringer of grief, and it's called the planet of karma. And so people get very fearful when Saturn comes and sits at the table. And the reason being is because our lessons tend to be quite hard. They tend to be very harsh. It teaches us through grief. It teaches us through things being removed from us. And we are being asked to go within. If you have been in a space where you have had sudden bereavement, sudden losses, sudden chaoses happening, endings that you couldn't have foreseen, Saturn is about saying, go within, go into a space and see who you're going to be after this. Saturn doesn't give you a death or turmoil to teach you. Saturn uses the turmoil to teach you, if that makes sense. So it's not that when Saturn comes, it says, oh, we'll just take that person away from you, and oh, we'll just take your job away from you. But it uses this energy of loss to teach us who we are going to be now. It kicks us into deep wisdom and deep understanding. And so that's in retrograde until we get to the 6th of September. Then we've got Pluto in retrograde until the 1st of October. And I want you to imagine every one of us has a shadow side. Every one of us has aspects that stand in the light, and every one of us has aspects that stands in the shadow. And when Pluto goes into retrograde, it's asking you to begin a dialogue with all of you. The good, the bad, and the ugly, the light side of you and the shadow side of you, the side that you are comfortable with showing to the world and the side of you that you never ever express to anyone. It is about getting to grips with all that you are, unraveling, letting go, tethering, untethering from everything that we are so that that shadow part of us can come up and into the light. When Pluto goes into retrograde, it is all about surrender and it's all about acceptance. And these are not easy words. They're very, very big words, not easy to digest, not easy to do, but so very, very necessary. And we are in a space where Pluto is saying, clean house, clean your house, deep clean. This is one of the reasons why we're in such a space of purging, is because here we are. Pluto is saying, get to grips with your shadow side, because within your shadow is so much of your power. So much of your power we have relegated to the halls of shadow. And here's what I know is that when we walk through our hall of shadows, we walk through a journey of extreme transformation. It is absolute empowerment and transformation, because the person who comes out of the hall of shadows is completely integrated with everything that they are. The power of who they are in the light and the power of the shadow coming together and integrating and uniting. We have got Neptune in retrograde from 19th of June, so it's just gone into retrograde, all the way through to the 25th of November. Now I'm just checking here, when Neptune comes into retrograde, it is about looking at what it is that you have manifested in your life. The first step of manifestation is about dreaming. It's about being in a space where you dream and you hope and you have desires. And these desires start to become magnetic, they become magnetized, and then we pour them out into our energy field, and the universe picks them up. So when Neptune goes into retrograde, it is a perfect period for us to stand back and have a look at what we've got around us. What have we manifested? To be very clear, do I like what I've got around me? Be very accountable. What I've got around me is because of what I've manifested. It's what I've put in place, either from knowing or not knowing, from awareness or ignorance, but I'm still responsible for what I've got around me. And Neptune then says, allow yourself to daydream, but don't get lost in it. Allow yourself to hope, but don't go off into the realms of fantasy. Allow yourself to have desires, but don't become so rigid about how they're going to manifest. And allow that to get out there. The danger of a Neptune retrograde is we spend all our time daydreaming and no time in action. And so use the power of this retrograde to be inspired, but then really, really insist with yourself. I'm going to put in the structure, and I'm going to put in the action, and I'm going to put in the discipline and make it happen. And on that final thing that I've just said, Mars has just gone into retrograde as well. Now, Mars is the energy of passion, it's initiative, it's assertive action. Mars is the warrior that says, come on, let's get out onto the battlefield and let's do what needs to be done. It's got an enormous amount of energy and vitality. And it is really, really about movement and action and results. So what happens when Mars goes off and has a cup of tea and just lets everything slide is that the battlefield goes into chaos. Nobody knows who they're fighting. Nobody knows what they're fighting for. Nobody knows when it's halftime. And it's kind of just like spurts of action that kind of go nowhere. And for some people, that's going to make them tear their hair out with frustration because I'm trying to get things done and it's like the whole planet has just gone off on a tea break. We are in a space where it says, because Mars is off on a tea break and probably having cake and cookies at the same time, you need to be very, very structured over the next 2 months. It's not really a time for initiating new projects, but it is a time for walking the talk. A plus B plus C plus D. Disciplined action, disciplined structure, disciplined steps. One step at a time. Pause, breathe, repeat. Pause, breathe, repeat. That's where we are at the moment. And so there is going to be chaos. You're going to see some people will spiral off into anger. Some people will spiral off into frustration and irritation. And some people are just going to lie down and wait until Mars comes back into action. That's an option, but it's a long time to wait until Mars actually picks up and gets back onto the battlefield. And it's too long to be in a space of unstructured chaos. And so this is the perfect opportunity for us to turn around and say, right, I need to structure my own actions, irrespective of what other people are doing or not doing. I need to be in a space of supreme centered discipline. So this is what we've got on at the moment. We've got Saturn, we've got Jupiter, we've got Neptune, we've got Pluto, we've got Mars in retrograde. So really, really, so much is happening out there. And then hold on to your hats, because just in case you thought that that was not enough, we're in a space here where Mercury is going into retrograde. And so as Mercury goes into retrograde on the 26th of July, on the 26th of July. And so this is what you can expect. We all know that a Mercury retrograde pushes us into a space where communication and technology just goes haywire. So this is why we are so very, very intense at the moment. How do we get through it? We center ourselves. When everything around us is being pulled up, where the doors are shutting around us, where we are in a space where everything that we're working towards is coming to an end, but where we're going next has not yet manifested, we need to come back to center, and we need to be in a space where we tether within. This is a critical time for deciding, what is it that I believe? What is it that I truly believe, and how is that going to sustain me as we move forward? I said to you that the second half of this year is far more results orientated than the first part. The first part of this year was very demanding, very unforgiving, very pressured. Okay, so the reality is the last part of this year is very demanding, very unforgiving, very pressured. But the difference here now is that we start moving into traction, we start moving into action with results, and we start feeling that we are getting somewhere. And so it is far kinder and far supportive. I hope that this made sense to you. I hope it resonated, and I hope it made sense of some of the chaos and intensity that we've got around us. I know that it was a much longer broadcast than normal, but there is just so much happening and I can't do it in a few minutes. If you want to get hold of me to find out what all of this is doing in your specific space, get hold of me and let's have a look at your chart, let's have a look at your energy, and let's see how we can navigate this for your very best empowerment, how you can navigate through the rest of 2018. It has been an absolute pleasure being with you. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got benefit out of it. And I will be back with you very soon as we see what August has in store for us. Until then, have a very empowered, have a very successful, have a very centered month. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.